After a week filled with upsets, hacks, and amazing gameplay, the first week of the Pokemon Draft League World Cup went absolutely insane. Were the underdogs like China and Brazil a fluke week 1? Or will the predicted top talent start dominating series handedly? Well, let's find out now with some of the best and worst games of week 2. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can keep pushing out tournament coverage like this. Anyways, let's get right into it. US Midwest's II is up against Portugal's I Feel Stabby. Chiyu Dark Pulses into my loader. Jesus Christ, 31? And then Espathra goes for a trick, probably expecting Tinkaton, but Gliscor swaps in, and they just both get a terrible item. Gliscor expertly goes for Toxic on the Toxic Orb Espathra, giving Glamora free Stealth Rock. After a bit of pivoting between the two, Gliscor finds itself in front of Glamora again, and Brick Break? Maybe screens are invisible? Again? Again? I guess the screens are shattered at this point, but now Terapagos just gets the shell sacked, and then it gets tricked to Toxic Orb. After maneuvering the Terapagos and Tinkaton in part to Iron Hands, Glamora is back out again, and Stabby sacks the Sneasler. And now Roaring Moon wins. Good start. The US Midwest won 5-3. UK's Palkia is taking on US South's Rai, and to emphasize the importance of this match, if Palkia loses, the UK is eliminated round 2. Palkia finds an early round into Dragon Dance Lapras, which fires off an Ice Shard in order to out-prioritize Prankster Whimsicott. However, the Whimsicott was actually eject button and gets forced out. Palkia surprisingly swaps out, allowing Garchomp to end the Gholdengo, but Lapras finds a chance to set up again, taking out the Corviknight, but Gren barely hangs on. In its last effort, the Whimsicott goes for a Tailwind, putting Meteor Beam Glamora in a prime spot to claim a couple kills. Deoxys Speed looks to be sacked right here, but it's actually Choice Scarf, allowing it to outspeed Glamora under Tailwind. But it's not over because Swords Dance Ceruledge is actually in a prime position to take the game after killing the Overquill off. However, a questionable switch on Rai's part opens the game back up for Palkia. With this next play, it's a true 50-50, because if Raging Bolt thunderclaps as Ceruledge goes for Shadow Sneak, another Shadow Sneak will win it for Rai. But if Bolt T-Bolts, predicting that, Palkia will win the game. Palkia goes for the Thunderbolt on the sneak and clutches up the game for UK, tying the series and keeping their chances alive. We now have a match between US West Spees versus EU East Giaramas. Early in the game, Spees reveals the uncommon Special Palafin, which massively weakens Rotom Wash and Uxie. A double to Palafin gives Spees even more chip before Roaring Moon has to use its booster to knock out the Palafin. After some maneuvering around a Specs Iron Moth, which does end up getting knocked but also killing Mandibuzz in the process, Giaramas takes an early 6-4 lead. Iron Boulder finds itself in to get a kill, however Rotom Wash now has a clean KO on the Clodsire here. Chestnut is holding down Scizor plus Great Tusk, but Scizor is able to find a position to get in front of the Iron Valiant, but the Iron Valiant reveals Babiri Berry, but Spees misses the punish and goes for Moonblast over a fighting move. Iron Defense Chestnut is able to 1v1 the Great Tusk, and it's looking like Iron Boulder now has the game wrapped up. But it's alright, because with 2 stacks alive still, Spees is able to position the Boulder back into a spot and win the game, giving US West the series 5-3. Canada's Low QP is up against Austria's Boss Parvatrag with Low QP's Wild Terra Screamtail build. Low QP finds an early position to get a sub and bulk up off with his Palafin, which pops its Citrus Berry and then blows up Decidueye in 1 acrobatics. The game is already looking bleak at best, but when there's a hurricane, there's a way. Usually it's the other way around, huh? Screamtail is now in and sets up, trying to keep itself healthy versus Heatran and Tornadus Therian. It finds the kill on Torn, however a series of unlucky paralysis turns versus the Urshifu and Heatran thanks to Ribombee not being dead from the Jet Punch. Geospeed actually manages to kill it off with the Psycho Boost. After a bit of back and forth between the two, Ribombee comes in, gets its webs up, but Low QP is able to find the kill on Tran with a Brave Bird prediction. Deoxys Speed is in a good position now to wrap up this endgame. Well, now Low QP is in the front, but the Urshifu doesn't have Sucker Punch. Are you kidding me? Man, what a wonderful game. Despite this, however, Canada still won 5-3. We now move on to... Bro, it's Scarlet and Violet. Even Theodore frickin' Manny didn't draft Stall. Anyways, EU West Smada is up against the Netherlands Quinn. Let's get ready for a long one. A lot of this early game is pivoting and scouting around sets, until turn 11 where Bronzong reveals Skill Swap, giving it access to Regenerator. On turn 15, Garchomp is able to find a position to get off a Swords Dance and get the first kill of the match on Clefable. By turn 35, Mata was able to remove both Garchomp and Terapagos, but was struggling to break through Bronzong and Pheasantipity because of all the hazards on his side, hindering Urshifu and Gudra Hisui's lifespan. After 20 more turns of pivoting around threats, Quinn makes an aggressive play, staying in with Bronzong on Gliscor's over-prediction, going for Toxic instead of Earthquake to get the KO. With Urshifu only having a couple more swaps left, once it went down, Skill Swap Bronzong easily dealt with the remainder of Mata's team. However, the Netherlands still ended up losing the series 3-5. But shout out to Skill Swap Bronzong because that was actually a really good tech. We now have France's Braze versus the Caribbean's Tay-101. Urshifu sets up a Trailblaze immediately, taking a huge superpower as a result. Braze sends in his Wicked Blow Resist, Deoxys Speed, which allows King Gambit to Terra and set up, as Tay sends in his King Gambit Resist, Ting-Lu. AV Quackavolt is able to tank the Sludge Wave, but Gengar is able to take the knockoff with its Focus Sash, killing both the Quackavolt, and with Destiny Bond it is also able to take out the King Gambit. More sacks take place from both sides, but notably Lando I goes for an Earth Power into a Lomomola, who takes very little, revealing its Assault Vest. Because of Aloe's AV and Rillaboom's Terrain, however, Brace has no way to break down the core, giving Tay the win. However, France and the Caribbean would still go on to tie the series 4-4. Let's move on to Bangladesh's Sadie Tomnoy versus China's Ghost Up. Urshifu quickly drops Tinkaton to 10%, but Zarude is able to get in versus the Clodsire, which, looks like a pretty tough matchup for Zarude, unaware, toxic. As crazy as this set looks, it actually cooked a lot of Clodzire's health, and now is able to 1v1 the Klefki. So honestly, it could sweep. Well, Meowscarada finds itself in versus Cinderace, and decides knocking the boots is a worthy sacrifice so he can get a free swap into Terapagos and remove the rocks. However, Ditto is now in play, but red card? I guess that stops setup, and now it can chunk Latias. How the fuck is this Latias so fast? With Ghost Up now far behind, he tries to make an aggressive Earthquake to catch a swap. However, Tomnoy does not swap, and Urshifu Rapid Strike easily finishes the endgame. However, overall, the series would tie at 4-4. And we now have US Northeast Elevated taking on Germany's Fogbound Lake. And before this game starts, my teammate Elevated got jawned for over an hour because his opponent was having a tea break. Anyways, Fogbound Lake starts off strong by getting a spike up with Hisui and Samurott, while also catching the Keldeo Secret Sword with his Violet Plume. Elevated starts pivoting around with his speed to eventually knock out Hisui and Samurott with the Keldeo. Scarf Terraflying Salamence looks like it's a huge threat here. However, Tinglu is able to eat 2 and after the Ruined Nation get the knockout with Payba. Alright, well, Scarf Jirachi is now attempting to bring it back, doing what it does best. However, the Iron Treads does break through, but it's quickly revenged by Tornadic Starion. The Salamence comes back out, but Elevate makes a hard swap into Gouging Fire, knowing that it can live 2 Terra Blast. Yeah, I hope he burnt his tongue on that T. However, US Northeast still was able to win the series 5-3. We now have Rest of the World's K-Crick versus India's USNE. Cinderace trades its health in exchange for a Will-O-Wisp on Tusk, who immediately sets up rocks on the Garchomp swap. Zarude finds itself in front of HSAM and attempts to set up with Trailblaze and Swords Dance, but a foul-played Petron catches it off guard, knocking Zarude out. Petron barely hangs on from Chomp Earthquake and is used as a sack later to get Iron Moth in front of Golden Go. With 2 screens up, however, Trick Room Diancie is in a good spot to make serious progress. But the Eel is min speed and wins the speed tie under Trick Room, knocking off Diancie's Power Herb. Meteor Beam does miss, however Diancie still gets a lot of chip on the Electros before Ogerpon comes in and revenges it. Now up 5-3, USNE U-turns on the Latias, but gets caught off guard by an Agility Weakness policy set. Samurott should be able to Sucker Punch it, but Electros, Great Tusk, and Ogerpon are all sacked, meaning Samurott likely doesn't have Sucker. Garchomp is able to quickly finish off the endgame app following. Now, I get bluffing having no Sucker, but did we really have to sack 3 Pokemon to do that? Anyways, Rest of the World came back from last week, winning the series 6-2. Coming off a huge upset last week, Brazil's Eternal Spirit is taking on Latin America's TAR-25. Ursaluna Blood Moon leads into Lando T. That was a cool magic trick. Zerud tries to force it out, but Ursaluna reveals Yawn, which causes Tar to swap to Iron Crown as Eternal Spirit reads that with an Earth Power. Crown then, Volt Switches? Zerud forces Ursaluna out this time, and after a lot of U-turn pivoting from both sides, Zerud finds its opportunity to Terra and starts setting up, beating Double Dance Klefki 1v1, and now it looks like Zerud just wins the game. Both Blood Moon and Meowscarada go down to Zerud, but a Scarf Uxie clutches up, finishing the Zerud off with Psychic Noise. Dusclops barely hangs on from the crit Flare Blitz to get a Haze off, and then Uxie calls the DD turn and tricks away its Scarf to Gouging Fire. With it all being down to Scarf Lando now, Raging Bolt hangs on even after a Stone Edge crit, winning the game for Brazil. However, Latin America continued their dominance from last week, winning the series 6-2.
Look at this dude.
J-Scurf, do you really think your game wasn't going to make it in? Let's be so real right now. Anyways, those have been some of the best and worst games of the second week of the Draft League World Cup. With the final week of group stages taking place next week, we have a lot to look forward to see who will lock in playoffs and who will have to fight their way in. This has been Burger, and I'll catch you guys next week.